It's May 2nd, 2009 at Mr. Julian Menzel's house. The name of the person being interviewed is Julian Menzel. When were you born?
Where I born?
When were you born?
When? 1919, March 25th, 1919.
I'm Cole Menzel and I'm the interviewer, and on the camera is Greg Harbring. This interview is part of the Illinois World War II Veterans Memorial Classroom Project. What branch of service were you?
Air Force.
And what war did you serve in?
In World War II.
What was your rank?
First lieutenant.
And where did you serve?
In China.
Alright. Were you drafted or enlisted?
Jake, what?
Were you drafted or enlisted?
I was drafted.
Alright.
I was in the field artillery to start off with, and I didn't particularly like field artillery, so transferred to the Air Force.
Alright.
Got into pilot training.
Where were you living at the time?
Yeah?
Where were you living at the time?
In Lincoln.
And were you married?
No.
Not yet. Why did you pick the service branch you joined?
We were in the field artillery, and you got to know the field artillery to decide. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So they said you could sign up for the Air Force. So another fellow and I both signed up for the Air Force, and they ended up in California, going to school out there and learn to fly. That's where we started out, and ended up in flying all the time.
Alright. Do you recall your first days in the service?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, the first day, you mean?
Yeah.
When we got to the field artillery?
Yeah.
Well, the first day was the day they said we to meet uptown, wait for the train to pick us up. So, got on the train and sit down, and we got as far as Springfield on the train. Another fella got in, sit down next to me. His name was Earl Rutherford, and he rode along. We were both sat there and talked all the time. We went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Then we were both assigned to the barracks.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up, we were both assigned to bunks in the second floor of the barracks next to each other. We didn't know that was going to happen. That's just the way it turned out.
Yeah.
And so we buddied up a lot of most of the time there. And of course we did a lot of visiting, you know. We talked to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd go by the office. There were big signs up there. Join the Air Force. They paid what was it, $75 a month.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Earl, why don't we join the Air Force and see what they got for us? And he didn't like the field artillery either, and I didn't either. So we decided we'd sign up for the Air Force. That's how we got in, and they took us, shipped us out to California, and he went one way and I went another way, and as far as going to the classes there.
Yeah.
We both went to school, and he got into navigation, and I got into pilot training, which I wanted, and we flew a lot of small airplanes and went to a lot of school. I'll tell you, they had a lot of classes there. Mm-hmm. And we trained in small airplanes and little bigger ones, and then went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Arizona, Yuma, Arizona. Mm-hmm. Hotter than all get out down there. And we flew planes, different planes down there, did a lot of flying there, and graduated in Yuma, and flying from the flying school, and they sent us to California, back to California, and got into B-25s. You don't know what a B-25 is,
No.
but it was a twin-engine bomber is what it was. We practiced in the bomber, flew that all over California, Arizona, and when they shipped us to Columbia, South Carolina, and we trained down in Columbia for a long time. We flew all over the East Coast in the 25, all kind of weather, you know, storms and sunshine and everything else, and didn't enjoy it at all, but we flew.
Mm-hmm.
I did, because I had different navigators, different times, you know, different crews
yeah.
would go along, and we went to Florida several times, flew down there, and then all at once we graduated from Columbia, South Carolina, and they said we're going to ship you overseas. So all the crews that were together down in Columbia, South Carolina, went to Florida, and all got on the train, and they handed me the list of all the guys that were headed for some foreign country, and they said be sure that they all get to Florida. And that was kind of funny, because I thought, what in the world do I care whether they got a whole bunch down there or not? And I guess they got there, because I turned the paper in and they said that everybody was there. And from there, they gave me a number, and the number was the number of the airplane that you were to get.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought in a whole batch of new planes, brand new planes from Kansas, I think it's, you know, Kansas City or something like that. And we went out, my crew and I went out and looked for the number on the plane. We found it. We inspected it, you know, looked it over, decided what was wrong. They said, well, you had to adjust the compass, and, you know, so it's true north, you know. So we took it up and just flew it up and down the Florida there for a while, and adjusted the compass and got it all set. And they gave me, when they got down, they gave me the orders that I was to stop at all the places that they listed, and they had names of every one of them. And he said, if you don't stop there, we're going to come out and look for you, see where you ended up. Mm-hmm. And they said, the rescue crew gets mighty mad if some dumb pilot that decided to stop someplace that they're not supposed to. And so you better stop at those places. So we started out down Haiti, the first one, stayed there overnight, and went to South America, and down at the naval place, the one instrument went bad right away in the plane, brand new plane. It went bad, and I was out in the water, a long way from South America. So I called the air base and Navy base in South America, asked them if they had somebody there that worked on instruments, and he said, come on in, we'll take care of it. So we flew on in, went into Navy base, and got it repaired. We stayed there overnight and then took off, went to the next place in South America and stopped, and went to Georgetown and then down to Natal. And when we got to Natal, the crew chief who was down there said that my engine, one engine on the right, was using too much gasoline. I said, how can you tell? He said, by measuring the amount of gas that they put in that particular side of the tank.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, you're going to have to stay here until we get a new carburetor to put on that thing. And they had a plane. They were going to send back to, let's see, New York, I think, and get a new carburetor. And we stayed there 4 days, and they finally got it fixed. We test hopped it, run up and down the South America there, testing the amount of gasoline it was using. And they said, well, you're going to have to leave. So the next morning, why, they got me up at 5 o'clock and said, you're going to leave. I really didn't want to leave at that ungodly hour, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was storming. We were going to go to the Ascension Island. Did you ever hear of Ascension Island?
No.
It's a big rock out in the middle that belonged to Britain.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our stopping place to get gas. And so we got out to Ascension Island, stayed there overnight, and gassed up, and they got us up real early again in the morning, headed for Africa. And made it to Africa, and stopped there, and proceeded to the next day. The list called that you stop at what is the name of it in Africa, a little airfield in Africa, and get gasoline. And then we proceeded on to the other side of Africa, and went
You
there.
need an audience?
Come right in.
No, don't bother. That's my chair over there anyway. Or it should be. I haven't done my homework.
What's the individual problem?
Good? Hmm.
Went to Accra. We went to let's see, Khartoum in Africa on the other side there, and stayed there overnight. Hot, boy, it was very hot there. And we stayed there overnight. They put us up in the camel barn, you know, where it had housed camels
Yeah.
before, and they cleaned it up to a degree. But you walk in there, and it's just like a big camel. The smell was still there. You know, it hadn't left. And you could smell the camel all night long. Then we went over to Aden, Arabia. The next day, they said to go to Aden, Arabia. We stayed there for overnight, and went to Khartoum in India. Now that was it was called in India at that time Khartoum. Well, Karachi, I beg your pardon. Karachi was in India at that time. It changed 7 years later to what was it now? Something else. Some other country took over, and we went from there. We went to down to Bombay. I mean, we stopped at Bombay and looked at Bombay and went down to Bangalore and turned the airplane in. Picked up another one. We rode to another place in a air transport, and picked up another plane that was loaded with guns and ammunition, because when we left there, we were going into China, and you had to have ammunition. They warned you about shooting, so you had to know what to do and everything. And we went on to into China and got to Kunming, and were assigned to our airfield after a couple days, and flew down there, and then we started our missions. And you had to go, told us that we had to have 35 missions in before you get eligible to go home. And of course everybody wanted 35 missions right quick. Well, you didn't get them that quick, you know, they don't they don't have enough gasoline and enough airplanes to, and so we stayed there for a couple months, and then moved to another field, and we stayed there for a short while, and let's see, by that time I got I had at least 8 or 10 missions in, and then we moved to the second one, and got several more missions. That's when I got appendicitis, and they sent me to Kunming to the hospital, and it took 4 days to get to the hospital. So I was over the appendicitis time I got to the hospital, you know, and they said, do you want to be operated on? And I said, no, it's all over with. So I went on back to the flying again, and we flew. My crew and I flew up to 20 missions, and one day they said, you and your crew get to take an airplane, go to Karachi, or not Bombay, no, Karachi, yeah, India, for a 10-day leave. So there's 3 crews that got the same thing. You got 10 days, 10 days. Each one had an airplane, and they gave me $300 to buy booze for the whole squadron, and we went. Of course, we went to Bombay, and we bought the booze after 10 days, and then on the way back again, I got my appendix bothered me, so I had it taken out. In I forget now what the name of the hospital was. A little place, and they took it out. Now I was required to stay there 10 days, so I spent 10 days in the hospital. And once they said you got to leave, and that's it. And it cost me $10 to get out, because they charged $1 a day to stay there. So we went back to China again, and stayed there till I got 35 missions. One day they said, you got your 35. I didn't keep track of my time, you know. You don't want to, I didn't want to know just exactly how many I had. It was all written on reports, you know, how many missions you had and who had them, where'd you go, and all that kind of good stuff. So they said, you got the 35. You're eligible to leave. So, in fact, they told me that early in the morning, one morning, and I said, well, so long, this is it, I'm leaving. And my navigator and I both had the same amount of time in. And so we were in China, but we didn't have an airplane to go back to India to catch our plane back home. So we looked around. There was a ship sitting at the strip that had gasoline. You know, they'd brought barrels of gasoline in. So we asked him, the fellow was flying the plane, if we could ride back if he would take us back to India. When he left there, don't you leave without us in the plane. So we went up, got all our stuff. Well, we threw away a lot of stuff, you know. You don't want to carry it along. And you had to have a parachute. So we checked out a parachute and got down there, and we got on the gas ship and flew back to India. And before we got back to India, the fella arranged for us to go to a transport building and wait and sign up for our next ship leaving for the United States. That next morning, they called and said, "You're ready to go." Jumped up, we got on the plane, and had a whole load of guys that were coming back. So we all rode back home and back into New York. And Ted, my navigator, went one way and I went another, back to Chicago and home. And that was the end of it. So I decided to get out of the Air Force. And they said, well, we went to the meeting, you know, and where they passed out the information. They said, if you got your time in, a certain amount of time, you can get out. Guess what? That hit me just right. I said, that's the end of it. So I went on home, stayed home, went to work. So that was the end of my military business.
All right, I'm just gonna ask you a few small questions. What was your boot camp like?
Huh?
What was your boot camp like?
Which one?
The artillery one?
Artillery or the Air Force?
Both.
Well, the artillery, field artillery, wasn't much to it. It wasn't real good, you know. They'd get you up as real. I wasn't used to getting up, you know, real early.
Yeah.
You know, just like you know. You get up real early, don't you? And they get you up and they get you out there exercise and all kind of good things like that. And that wasn't fun at all. That's the reason we changed our mind. But when we got to the Air Force, they made you get up earlier. It was dark, and you'd go out and exercise. You know, you had to exercise even though you didn't want to exercise. You know, you didn't feel like exercise. And you'd go in and you'd take a shower and get ready and go to breakfast. Instead of walking over to eating breakfast, you had to line up and double time run to breakfast.
Wow.
And that wasn't fun exactly. I didn't think. We did that most every morning that we were in those schools, you had to get up at a certain time and run, and then go eat breakfast at a certain time, and take a shower. You better be ready to take a shower and to get there in time. And you go to breakfast, you eat there, you go back and wash your hands, and then we'll go to the class and get your books and study and study and study. That was it, yeah.
Do you remember your instructors?
Only one. That was the flying instructor, and he was a nice fella. You know, he was well, you would call him very calm. You know, he wasn't excited the exciting time, but he was very calm, and he wouldn't yell at you. You know, because you know it's scary there when you first start. That is, and I think all the rest of there was what, eight guys in our group that was learning to fly with him. You know, and he had a lot of problems with different guys. You know. He seemed like he stayed calm all the time. All the guys liked him, and that was in our group. So that was it. I don't, Cole, C-O-E, Cole, I guess you call him, was his last name. And that's the only one I can remember.
Alright. How many people were in your plane?
With that I flew in combat,
Yeah,
there was 5 of us.
5 of you. What kind of plane did you fly?
B-25, 2-engine.
Were there any casualties in your unit?
In what? In mine or?
In your unit?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Several of them hit the mountains and got shot down. And I know Benny Kelly got. I flew with several times with Benny. Well, I knew him in the States, in Columbia, South Carolina. I knew him, he and his wife, and when I ended up in the squadron over in China, he was there, and I flew with him a couple times there, and he was on a mission over Indochina, and it seemed the navigator, you know, navigator was in the navigator's compartment, right in back of the pilot and co-pilot, and they got hit in over Indochina, and he said, the co-pilot or the navigator said that the bullet or thing hit Benny and killed him right away. He was the pilot, and it was on fire. And next thing he remembered, because the above and forward of him was a hatch to go out the top. He said last thing he remembers is him climbing up there and grabbing the handle and pulling it, and the hatch flew off, he remembered. And the next thing he remembered, waking up in the rice paddy in the water. His head wasn't covered, but when he hit the water, it woke him up. You know, it was cold, and the parachute was strung out in back of him, but the rest of the crew all perished in that explosion, and he was the only one. And he had when he got back to the camp, he had a big cut in the side of his head, and the Frenchman had taken him Well, when he woke up, he looked up and there was a Chinaman standing back of the bushes way off to the distance, posing, come with me. He was hiding back of the bushes, and he didn't know whether to run, grab his gun, or so he picked up his parachute, and he said he went toward him. Of course, there wasn't a heck of a lot he could do, but he just went with him, and the guy, the Chinaman, took him to the French hospital down there, and they took care of him. And one Frenchman took him in his toe and fixed him up. They had him bandaged, and they put a tam on him. You know what you know what a tam is? The hat, and pulled it down over the bandage. And they took him to restaurants, and they ate in the same restaurant that the Japanese were eating at the time, and they would sit there and play with the Japanese swords, you know, the tassels on the swords. And one day they said, "You're ready to go." And they took him out on the road and sent him down the road with a Chinaman. Walked him down there so far, and then the Chinaman, they stopped, and he waited, and another Chinaman came out of the bushes, took him, and they walked him down the road for a long way. They said they did that. He said that they did that for him for a long time, and finally one day they got to a field, and there was a L-5, you know, a small airplane. And maybe you'd seen him flying around with the one engine. They picked him up. It was an American pilot. He picked him up and brought him back to our field, and he came in to see us in the barracks here before he left, because he was on his way home then. But he was showing us a big scar on his head, and telling us about his experiences. He said, boy, he never wouldn't want to go through that again.
Were you awarded any medals?
Just air medal.
How did you get it?
Huh?
How did you get it?
Was it a general or colonel from one of the headquarters come around and presented everybody that had them coming. We were all lined up naturally, and he pinned them on us. So that's the way everybody got one.
All right. What was the food like at the camps or the barracks?
Yeah. In India, it was pretty good. In China, if you like rice, you're
That's all
all
they
set.
had.
I didn't particularly care. I went from 194 pounds to 150 something in weight in 2 months. I think it was about 2 months. So I lost quite a bit of weight, and the navigator that was there got there about a week or so before we did, and he lost so much weight it was pitiful. He was skinny when he was in the States, but when he got there, well, he had lost, I don't know how many pounds he lost, but the doctor said that we were all required to take vitamin pills. So they brought vitamin pills instead of something to eat. So I didn't particularly care about the food. I didn't like chili. I didn't like rice at that time, and then I still don't like it.
Was there anything special you did for good luck when you flew?
For good luck, huh? No, not really. Not that I remember.
Alright. How do people entertain themselves?
Well, you visited with all the rest of the crew and got some other opinions of what you thought was going on. Then they had baseball there. You could play baseball, or, throw a ball back and forth. Or there wasn't much else to do in China. And in the States now, when in states that, say Fort Hill, Oklahoma, go drink beer at night.
Mm-hmm.
You go down to the PX where you bought the beer, and you get, say, 6, 8 guys around the table and buy a bunch of bottles of beer, big bottles of beer, and sit there and drink beer till you're numb, and then you go home.
Where did you travel, or do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
Unusual events, on this one mission, I never will forget it. I mean, that was scary as far as I was concerned. They came in, they got a hold of me one day and said, "You're going to have a mission tomorrow morning, and that so you are to load 2 500-pound bombs," and they were going to get the gasoline and fill the airplane up and everything. And you put a load 2 500s, and so they got us out there that night, and we loaded the 500. You had to load your own bombs.
Mm-hmm.
So if anything happened to them, you made a mistake. So we were very careful how you hung them in the bomb bay. So we hung it, we got it all ready, and the next morning, bright and early, it got us up, walked outside, and the fog was so bad you couldn't see the airplanes out there at all. In fact, you couldn't hardly see anything. And boy, they're not going to send us on a mission today. And they had we went to the mission, to the meeting, and they said, "You're going to go out, follow a ship, B-24, a big one, out to the China Seas, and you're going to bomb." There's 2 of us. I was one of them, and what's his name was the other one. Was going to go out and bomb this ship. And I thought, boy, I tell you, that we can't on a day like this. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, they said the B-24 will meet you at 10,000 feet. Fly in the fog. Mm-hmm. And the fog was so thick. We we followed we got the missions. It was go after this ship, and we went on, and the B-24 was going to meet us at 10,000, and I went down to the ship, and you could hardly see the thing. There was enough, the fog had risen enough that you could look out the windshield and see the end of the runway, mm-hmm. the side of it. And they said, "You're going to take off and go after it." And I took off, and when you pull the plane up a little bit off the ground, that was the end of the vision, you know. You couldn't see anything except the instruments in front of you. And we kept circling the airport. Had to time yourself, you know, so you turn, keep turning, you know, so he wouldn't get away from the airport. And to beat that plane up 10,000 feet. And you know, it took a long time. It seemed like it was a long time to fly from sea level to 10,000 feet is quite a jump. And I got up to 9,000 something, and there I broke out in between the clouds, and I looked up and I could see the 24 up there way above waiting for us. And climbed up to 10,000 feet, and there he was, he waiting. So both of us, he got on one side and I got on the other, and we flew out the China Seas and flew for quite some time and got out there in the sea, and the pilot pointed like, "Hey, that's it, go get it." And so I opened the bomb bay doors and set the gun and fired the cannon and turned on the switches for different things. Went down from our altitude down to right above the water, and we attacked the ships. And boy, they were really shooting at us. There's all kind of gunfire coming from the ship. You could see the little lights, you know, the guns shooting at you. They were small caliber. They were shooting at you. You could see them hitting the water all around you. And I fired I fired 8 50 caliber machine guns, you know, ahead, and 8 of them make quite a splatter on the side of the ship, you know what I mean? And tore up a lot of their stuff and shut those guns off, you know, that were shooting back at us. And then they had a gunship off to the right, was shooting bigger shells at me, and that is what worried me, you know, those big shells, because they were exploding all around. You could see the powder, I mean smoke, you know, where they exploded. And I attacked this ship, and I got up and dropped the bomb. The one bomb went underneath the fantail of the ship, and the second bomb went right through the rigging on the ship and exploded. And the other fellow on the other plane they had attacked too. And when he came over, he had a bombardier that aimed the bomb, dropped one bomb right in the middle of the ship, and got rid of that ship real quick. But what bothered me when I turned to head back to land again, I looked down at the gas gauge, you know, because we'd traveled quite a ways at a lot of power to get up 10,000 feet. We was heading back home again, got a message we had to go to a different field, because the radio operator got a message that we had to go to a different field because we were still fogged in at our field. So I was changed heading, and the navigator gave me another course to take, and we headed toward the field, the fighter field, and looked down at the gas gauge, and when we got almost there, gas gauge, see there's what was a 4 tanks, wing tanks. You turn it different. Wasn't any gas in them. I said to the engineer, check that once and see if that's what you get. And he checked it. He said, we're out of gas. And we hadn't landed yet. We had about a half hour to go yet. And there is what bothered me. You look at the ground, there's nothing there to put an airplane down on, except big rocks, you know. Some of them are as big as this house, you know, but no gasoline. And boy, that shook me. And I told everybody on the plane to get their parachute fastened on and buckled up real tight, open the hatches, just in case. And if the engine sputtered a couple times, get out. The only way you're going to save yourself. And wouldn't it have been awful to have to walk? And in a place like that. And it just so happened that the airport, well, the fighter field was there, and I went straight into that and landed. And we stayed there overnight. And then they filled us up with gasoline so we'd go back home again. Yeah, the fog had moved on, and I tell you that it shook me up something fierce. That almost run out of gas. Well, with somebody shooting at you all the time, and almost run out of gas is something again.
What were some of the pranks that you or others would pull?
The what?
What were some of the pranks that you or others would pull?
Other planes?
Pranks.
Huh?
Pranks.
Oh, prank?
Like jokes.
Well, right now I can't think of anything that we did. There was a lot of things that went on over there. Well, almost another exciting event was taking off one morning and loaded and the bombs and everything. It was taken off, and put on the power, and going down the runway. Got up to almost ready to take off. You know, about 100 miles an hour. All at once, the engine on the right started quitting, backfiring and slowing down, and wasn't running, and couldn't take off that way, so shut her down and pulled over and stopped the thing. Lucky to do that, you know, that it didn't run off the runway. That was it. Boy, that scared the heck out of me too. Especially when they don't run, right? There you are. Tom can tell you a few his stories. Yeah,
I never heard a shot fired in anger in my life.
but how about the time that the airplane you thought was going to?
Oh yeah, we had a couple of times I thought it was going to die, but
Yeah, there was some of them.
everything came out all right.
What kind of reception did you get from your family when you came home?
Well, very good. My mother and my sister was the one that met me. That was it. My brother was in the Air Force. He was down in Missouri. I was glad to get home.
How did your service and experiences affect your life?
You stop and think about what could have happened and what all did happen. You know, it changes everybody. You know.
What about your service makes you feel nostalgic?
Huh?
What about your service makes you feel nostalgic?
Being in danger, that is one of the big things, yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that we didn't cover?
Well, not that I know of offhand. Of course, that's been a long time ago, yeah.
Can you tell us a story about because you told us a story about this mission where the Japanese guy flew by you, like you just didn't bomb him. Like, I think it was on your last mission, he was flying by you and you just didn't want to go in.
Oh, well, that's plane.
Yeah.
I was heading from, let's see, I was going back home from a mission, one mission, and was watching the use of gasoline, you know. That's mighty important, you know, you don't want to quit in the middle. And there was a plane that was heading for us, and it was moving right along, and it got into sight, you know, where we could identify it with. It was Japanese, not a bomber, but a transport. You know, had the big red ball on it. And I thought about turning around and chasing after it, and you know, firing the cannon several times at it. And then I thought, the gasoline is more important to me than it is to shoot that thing down. So I turned around, kept right on going home.
All right. Can we get some photos? Can you explain some of the photos you have, if you have any?
I don't know where they are right now. I'd have to get Elsie to.
Alright, because that was one of the things on here that we should just explain some of the photos. Like, you'll hold them up and explain some of the photos. Like, the one the guy drew for you.
Oh, that the B-25 and the crew. Let's see, where is that? I forget now where. Whatever
Is it
happened.
downstairs? You got some stuff downstairs, didn't you?
Yeah, I got that down there.
You want to show him those photos?
You want?
I'll go down there.
Probably see that, yeah.
Down and look at them, or you
Yeah.
can photograph them even if you want. But
You want them?
he's got some on the wall,
Yeah.
several, not a lot.
Yeah, we can get those.
And we can ask Dooney. I'll ask or Elsie if she has.
She can't get down there.
some. I didn't realize you were recording. I didn't look over here and thought, whoa, I should keep out of this.
Yeah.
Alright.
Stop.
Huh?
Can we stop?
Yeah.
So what?
So just like, hold it up like here.
This, like this.
Yeah. And then just start talking about it.
But well, this is what my friend. He and I used to go out and drinking beer, you know, in California, and we would go out and do a lot of boozing. And when we got back to Columbia, South Carolina, why, he came over to the barracks one day and wondered where I was located. And so he sat down on the bunk, you know, my bunk there, and drew this picture of me, and he hung it up on the wall, and he was gone. Let's see, where did he go? He went to Europe, I think, as a pilot, and he was in Europe for a long time. I never did hear any more from him, but he's the one that drew that picture, and of what he thought we were like. So that's where it came from. And right now I can't think of what his name was, but we used to have a lot of fun together, going out, talking. Is that it?
And can you talk about that other one too, please?
Hmm?
Can you talk about that one too?
Oh, all right. And this was the insignia. You see it? Insignia for the squadron. the jig squadron, they had somebody, I don't know who did it, but they put the insignia on a plane of their plane, you know, and everybody copied it off there, and that's where this one ended up. One of the copies off a different plane, and they had that kind of stuff. And it was called the Jig Squadron.
All right.
Appointed the officer of the day, and I was supposed to take any report that was pertaining to the squadron. And so late one night, we were all playing poker. There was about 10 of us around the big poker table playing poker. And the guy came in and said, the officer of the day is wanted down on the flight line. They captured a enemy on the airfield. So, well, that was me. We got in the sergeant of the day was there. He had a Jeep. We jumped in the Jeep and went down there to see what was going on. And the Chinese had caught I guess he was a Chinaman. He had been out in the middle of the runway, trying to build a fire. He had sticks and all kind of stuff. He was trying to build a fire out in the middle of the runway, and the Chinese had caught him and put him in the sidecar of the motorcycle. And so they brought him over there, and they wanted the officer of the day to know what was going on, and there was, you know, a lot of Chinese going around, blah, 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 blah. I didn't know what they were talking about, and finally found somebody that knew what they said. When he was telling me about him, they had him in a sidecar, and he was trying to talk to him, and I guess he was a little, you know, unwound or something. Anyway, and the guard had his rifle, and he'd take him, hit him in the head with the butt of his rifle. And I kept saying, don't hit him, blah, 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 you know, and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know what they were talking about. And finally, the one Chinaman that could speak English came down there, and he said that, well, they were going to take him up to the office and interrogate him to find out what he was doing out there on the runway, in the middle of the runway. And so they took him up the hill and up to the office, and I went up later on to find out whatever happened to him. Well, I think they chopped his head off, his hands off, and his head off, and then they buried him someplace. You know, that was it. They held its trial there, and that was it. And if you don't think they're cruel, boy, I tell you, it's scary. You know.
I guess it felt he was trying to signal in plane.
He was
give
trying
them
to
a target area for the planes.
Yeah,
coming
trying
bomb
to get
the
them to
airfield.
come down there, and.
You think he was, or he just?
We knew, they knew that on the other side was part of this mountain. It was about 3,000 feet up above, and you could. They had the Japs were up on that hill someplace, and watching the runway because they were around shooting at them for a while there. And I think that was what they were signaling.
You think he was trying to target?
Target somebody, you know.
Kind of unusual for a Chinese to do it. When the Japs were,
Then when the two guys stole a barrel of gasoline, they had it on a yo-yo pole, you know, between them, you know, carried it off the base, and the Chinese caught them at the gate. I don't know why they'd go out of the gate or with a barrel of gasoline, but they did, and they caught them, and they held their trial there. So they cut their hands off, and then they cut their heads off, and buried the bodies, threw the heads in the stream of water, and the dogs later on had found the heads and were down there chewing on them, and they come in, and we heard about it, so we decided we'd go down and to the stream and see what they were really talking about. Sure enough, there were the dogs down there were eating the heads, and they made the Chinese go down there and bury the heads, get the heads buried. That was the end of their gasoline.
you told me one time that these Chinese were paid almost nothing, and they were taking rocks and pounding them in to make the runways. They pound them into the soil, just the ground, and real close fitting them, you know, more or less, to make the runways, because they didn't have concrete, I guess, or anything.
Didn't have concrete.
Chinese were they were cheap. What they pay them a day? I don't suppose they paid them
I don't know what
10 cents a day, hardly, did they?
It wasn't much, because they had hundreds of them out there working on getting rocks out of the hills, you know, and then they'd beat them, break up the rocks and make a runway and level it out. And
Boy,
I don't know what they would pay them, but
almost nothing.
yeah.
I've read of that before, and I think they got like something like 10, 20 cents a day, you know, in arm, equal to.
Well, they got something to eat. That was the thing. That one camp the Chinese had, they had a big pot, you know, big cast iron pot with fire underneath it, and you know, water cooking. It was full of rice. I don't know what else. They had onions in it too, and garlic. That was the big thing, and you could smell that for miles away. You know, that's cooking, and people would go up there and dip out some, you know, into their little pot. That's where they ate their meals. But they used to have people come in there from all over the place.
Do you really, how many years ago that was? You said, let's say 43 and 57 and 9, 66 years ago?
Yeah, every bit of that.